In a world where people are constantly seeking deeper meaning, heightened consciousness, and personal transformation, the promise of achieving enlightenment in as little as 1 hour may sound too good to be true. Yet, this is exactly what proponents of spiritual drugs, often referred to as entheogens, claim. Substances like psilocybin, ayahuasca, and LSD have been used for centuries in spiritual rituals, offering users a glimpse into altered states of consciousness that can lead to profound realizations about the self and the universe. The concept of instant awakening has become a powerful draw for modern seekers, but it raises important questions. Can we truly reach a higher state of being in such a short time? And at what cost? While many claim to have experienced life-changing epiphanies through these substances, others caution against their unpredictable and potentially dangerous effects on the mind and body. In this video, we will explore the fascinating allure of getting awakened through spiritual drugs, diving into the science behind it, the risks involved, and what spiritual leaders and psychologists have to say about this fast track to enlightenment. What are spiritual drugs? Spiritual drugs, often referred to as entheogens, are psychoactive substances used to induce spiritual or mystical experiences. These substances, which include natural and synthetic compounds, have been used in religious or spiritual contexts for centuries. Some of the most common examples include ayahuasca, a psychoactive brew made from the Banisteriopsis carpi vine and other plants, psilocybin, commonly found in magic mushrooms, LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, peyote, which contains the psychoactive alkaloid mescaline, and DMT, dimethyltryptamine. These drugs are consumed with the belief that they offer profound insights into the nature of reality, the self, and the universe. Often they are taken in ritualistic settings under the supervision of shamans or spiritual guides. The rise of psychedelic culture, a global phenomenon. The use of spiritual drugs has gained momentum, especially in Western culture, in recent years. According to a study published by Johns Hopkins University, the use of psychedelics like psilocybin has increased by 200% from 2015 to 2020, and an increasing number of people are turning to these substances as a form of self-exploration or therapy. This rise is partly driven by celebrities and influencers openly discussing their experiences with psychedelics, and the renewed interest in ancient practices that use these substances for healing and spiritual awakening. The influence of spiritual drugs on lives, good or bad. Many users and proponents claim that spiritual drugs offer life-changing benefits. A study from Imperial College London demonstrated that psilocybin can help alleviate symptoms of depression and anxiety, with some participants reporting long-term improvements in their mental well-being. Psychedelic-assisted therapies are being increasingly studied for their ability to help patients overcome trauma, addiction, and even existential distress related to terminal illness. Some key benefits reported include spiritual awakening. Many people who have used these substances claim to have experienced an opening of their consciousness, where they felt connected to the universe, nature, or a higher power. Healing trauma is another significant benefit. Spiritual drugs are increasingly used in controlled therapeutic settings to help individuals process trauma, break free from addictions, or gain new perspectives on deeply ingrained psychological issues. Personal growth is also frequently mentioned. Many users attribute their life transformation to experiences they had under the influence of spiritual drugs. People report gaining clarity on their life's purpose, deepening their understanding of themselves, and improving relationships. A 2021 study by Roland Griffiths, a psychologist at Johns Hopkins, found that nearly 70% of participants reported the psilocybin experience as one of the most spiritually significant experiences of their lives. But while spiritual drugs may provide short-term spiritual insights, they are not without their dangers. One of the key concerns is that these substances can be unpredictable, leading to both psychological and physical harm. psychosis and mental health risks are real issues. Some users have reported experiencing terrifying hallucinations, known as bad trips. For those with pre-existing mental health conditions, psychedelics can trigger episodes of paranoia, psychosis, or even long-term mental health issues. A study conducted by King's College London found that individuals predisposed to mental health conditions might face adverse effects, including heightened anxiety and prolonged psychological distress. Addiction and dependency are also concerns. While psychedelics are not typically physically addictive, some individuals may become dependent on the experience they provide. This can lead to a form of psychological addiction, where individuals feel they need repeated drug experiences to maintain spiritual growth. Lack of integration is another issue. Many people may struggle to integrate the profound experiences they have under the influence of these substances into their daily lives, leading to confusion, disconnection from reality, or feelings of disillusionment. In some extreme cases, misuse of these substances has led to accidents or even deaths. For instance, in 2016, a Canadian tourist died after consuming ayahuasca in Peru. The cause was linked to a violent reaction during the ritual, which led to tragedy. Scientific perspectives. What do psychologists and scientists say? There has been a resurgence in research on psychedelics after decades of prohibition, and the results are promising in some areas. The US Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has granted breakthrough therapy status to psilocybin-assisted therapy for depression, and several ongoing clinical trials are investigating the potential of these drugs to treat PTSD, addiction, and anxiety disorders. According to Dr. Rick Doblin, founder of the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, MAPS, psychedelics, when used responsibly and in a therapeutic context, have the potential to revolutionize the treatment of mental health conditions. So, how do these drugs affect the brain? Psychedelics work by interacting with serotonin receptors in the brain, particularly the 5-HT2A receptor, which is thought to be involved in mood regulation and perception. A study conducted by neuroscientist Robin Carhart-Harris at Imperial College London found that psychedelics like psilocybin create a temporary dissolution of the ego, a state in which the brain's usual patterns of thought and behavior are disrupted, potentially allowing for new insights and perspectives to emerge. However, neuroscientists also warn of the potential risks of these altered states. Chronic or frequent use of psychedelics can lead to neuroplasticity changes, making the brain more prone to psychological disorders or cognitive distortions. Insights from spiritual leaders. What do they say? Proponents of spiritual drugs argue that, when used correctly, these substances can be a powerful tool for enlightenment. Indigenous cultures, such as the Amazonian tribes, have used ayahuasca for centuries as part of their spiritual and healing practices. Shamans who lead these ceremonies argue that these substances help individuals connect to deeper spiritual realms and receive guidance from nature, ancestors, or the divine. In modern times, spiritual influencers like Ram Dass, a renowned American spiritual teacher, experimented with LSD in the 1960s, claiming it helped him awaken spiritually before he eventually transitioned to more traditional meditation practices. But not all spiritual leaders are advocates of using substances for spiritual growth. The Dalai Lama, for example, has publicly stated that while psychedelic substances can offer glimpses of otherworldly experiences, they are not a sustainable or reliable path to spiritual enlightenment. He stresses the importance of developing mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom through non-chemical means such as meditation and moral conduct. Sadhguru, a modern-day mystic and spiritual leader, echoes similar sentiments. He argues that true spiritual growth comes from an inward journey, and that relying on substances could detract from the authentic path of self-discovery. In his words, chemical enlightenment is not enlightenment. It's a kind of trickery that your body plays on your mind, and eventually it will come back to bite you. Conclusion: a complex relationship with spiritual drugs. The debate over spiritual drugs is complex, with powerful arguments on both sides. On one hand, they have shown promise in clinical settings for treating psychological conditions like depression, PTSD, and addiction. On the other hand, their unpredictable nature, potential for misuse, and long-term psychological risks make them a double-edged sword. For some, these substances are a doorway to spiritual enlightenment, offering insights and experiences that may otherwise remain inaccessible. But for others, they represent a dangerous detour that can lead to psychological harm, confusion, and even tragedy. Whether spiritual drugs are good or bad depends largely on how they are used, whether in controlled, ceremonial settings or through irresponsible experimentation. As science continues to explore the therapeutic potential of these substances, society will need to carefully weigh their risks and benefits. For now, it seems that the wisest course may be one of balance. Respect for the potential healing power of these substances, tempered with caution, and a commitment to personal and spiritual growth through more traditional, sustainable means.